Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacy. You're joining us for our Leaders and Legends segment, and our guest for this segment is Joseph Rotman, CPA and author of the Industry Accountant's Intelligence Briefing, Helpful Hints from the Trenches. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
So I want to give everybody some background on Joe. He is a licensed CPA holding both a bachelor's degree and an MBA. Between 2010 and 2015, Joe held positions of Senior Manager of SEC Reporting and Compliance, Director of Corporate Accounting, Director of SEC Reporting, and Corporate Controller for 3 different organizations. Joe's professional experience and varied roles allowed him to observe a myriad of accounting and finance professionals, enabling him to make first-hand observations from the accounting trenches. Joe began keeping a list of every accountant mistake he observed for the purpose of recognizing and preventing common mistakes, minimizing their occurrences, and mitigating resulting disruptions. He recognized common factors contributing to mistakes between various organizations and verified that these patterns were universal throughout corporate America. Then he interviewed more than 100 accounting professionals at all levels. His findings led to an easily digestible set of methods to detect and prevent accounting mistakes. Executive coaching lessons, which helped him to adapt a variety of communication challenges combined with these methods. This led to his revolutionary book designed to hone your mastery of the accounting and finance profession and accelerate your career. So that's pretty interesting. Tell us a little bit about your book, The Industry Accountant's Intelligence Briefing, and why you decided to write it.
Yeah, well, when a corporate accountant or industry accountant shows up for work every day, my research has shown that they're vulnerable to making approximately 65 different types of common mistakes.
Wow.
And so this book identifies these common mistakes, shows anecdotal examples of when these occurred, and provides solutions. So it provides it in a very digestible, entertaining format, although, very serious content.
So how did you gather all the information, and was there anything that surprised you most about what you learned?
Yeah, so to gather the information over a 4.5-year period, I worked for 3 different companies, and I kept track of every mistake I observed an accounting and finance professional make. It didn't matter whether if the mistake was big or small, or in preparation or in review or on a spreadsheet or in communications or whatever. If there was a mistake, I put it on the list. Then concurrently, I interviewed over 100 accounting professionals at all levels to get their input on the same mistakes. And then I also layered in some lessons learned from executive coaches. So those 3 sources provided the content for the book. In terms of what surprised me the most or what I found most interesting, regardless of which one of these 65 mistakes an accounting professional will make, the feedback they get from their boss is almost universally the same. It's usually in the form of a broad slogan, either you need to double check your work better, you need to pay attention to detail, you need to be more careful. They hear stuff like that often doesn't get to the root cause of why the mistake happened and how it could be prevented in the future. So the book really does provide, root cause solutions. And but the broad slogans is what I've seen is the most interesting, and regardless of organization, that's universal. So
what is the reason that these mistakes are being made? Is it a lack of technical knowledge, or is it other reasons?
Yeah, in my opinion, about 95% of the mistakes that accounting professionals make are easily avoidable. They have the necessary technical expertise, but even though they know how to get from point A to point B in terms of completing something, they don't necessarily know how to get to point A to point B and be 100% accurate. And so there's certain little risks or little nuances with any given task or work product that they miss, and a mistake results. And so what this book does is I try to fill in the gaps and prepare people for all these different situations they're going to be in, and they're better prepared to get it right.
So what are some of the biggest and most repeated accounting or money mistakes that happen at every company, regardless of industry?
Yeah. So some big ones I see in accounting, one would be handling reviewer comments. In every accounting department, there's usually a CFO, a VP, and controller, and then any number of lower-level directors, managers, and senior and staff accountants. And often when CFOs and VPs and controllers give review comments to make some updates, change a presentation, add things, move things around, what I've seen in my research is 20 to 25% of these reviewer comments are vague. It's very hard to tell what exactly they're communicating. But on the flip side, these people, the CFOs and VP and controllers, have a major emotional connection with a review comment. So if any gets fumbled or missed, this group of people gets really upset. And so if you know on the front end that when you get review comments, 20 to 25% are going to be vague, you know immediately to clarify and confirm, and then you have a separate process to make sure you addressed every review comment. And so that's something that's pervasive. With spreadsheets, another one, I see a lot of spreadsheets that outside the work product range, they lack validations to ensure accuracy. So in my book, I talk about four. They're called recalculation validations, relationship validations, tie-out validations, and recalculation validations. So those are four that are often missed, and that often leads to easily preventable mistakes in spreadsheets. And so those are a few examples of pervasive issues I see that either cause mistakes or trigger mistakes.
And what are the consequences when these mistakes happen? Like, what does it do to the company?
Yeah. So depending on how long the mistake survives, it may or may not impact the company. But who it really impacts is the person that made the mistake and their career. So if you're a corporate accountant and you make too many little mistakes, or you make a couple big mistakes, those mistakes don't get caught in time, you either are vulnerable to getting fired, or even actually much worse, flatlining, meaning no promotions. You're in your same role kind of forever, and you're not going to be trusted to take on additional responsibility. And so for the company, if big mistakes survive and go uncaught, if you're a public company, that could cause restatements that can be hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to mitigate. And then at the other end of the spectrum, it just causes the inefficiency of the staff to have to do redos and go through damage control and apologize about mistakes. So for the company, sometimes it impacts, sometimes it doesn't. For the individual, major impact on their career trajectory.
So aren't some accounting mistakes and missed budget numbers expected or anticipated as like a cost of doing business?
Yeah, I think when dealing with human beings, there's always a expectation that there's going to be some level of mistakes. But irrespective of that, if you're the person that made the mistakes in a budget process, if CFO told you to do something and you misinterpreted and you gave them the wrong budget numbers, for example, in a budget process, that accounting professional is still vulnerable to taking an integrity hit and consequently having less of an opportunity for promotion or a lower bonus and things like that. So even though some level of mistakes are expected, it's still better not to be the person that makes them in the accounting department.
So do most accounting departments have like experienced finance managers or CPAs that should be aware of those mistakes and kind of look out for them? Yeah,
in my research, the reason I wrote this book is I think there's a lack of awareness on these mistakes. So there's many accountants that are talented and instinctually get things right, and those people often are not good at explaining to the people that report to them how to error-proof and avoid mistakes. If one of their reports makes a mistake, what they're often going to say is pay attention to detail, double-check your work. You need to be more careful, still not getting to the root cause. And then on the other hand, you do have a big group of people that is able to complete work, but it may not be completed as accurate as it needs to be all the time. And when it's not accurate and when there's mistakes, that's what can cause havoc in accounting departments, cause wasted time, cause redos, cause damage control, cause all types of problems. So in our profession, until this book came out, there really was nothing that when someone walked in the door, they had a manual on, well, here's the 65 most common mistakes I'm vulnerable to make. Here's how to attain accuracy. And so in a sense, it is revolutionary. And but in accounting departments, there's a mix of, different intelligence, different talents, and some people are real accurate and some aren't, but the ones that are often are not good at teaching the ones that are not to improve.
It's interesting. It seems like it should be a class. Like I went to school for accounting at a local big university, and there should be a whole class on just the 65 common mistakes, you would think.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. In accounting, there's certainly people go to school to learn the accounting rules, so you need accounting expertise. You also need mathematical expertise, and then people expertise with communications. What my book really teaches is accuracy expertise that really, adds on to existing accounting, math, and people expertise. And so that accuracy expertise in a lot of accounting professionals is lacking, and if they're at the wrong place at the wrong time or in a little bit unfamiliar situation, they're liable to make a mistake, and if that mistake's big enough dollars and goes uncaught for a long period of time, it could have serious consequences for the culprit, the individual that made the mistake.
I have a question too, Joe. Can you give us any tips or can you share with the audience, especially for people that have smaller businesses that don't necessarily have accountants on staff, some tips that they might be able to follow to make their accounting a little easier?
Yeah, well, I certainly can give accuracy tips. So in my book, in the 65 mistakes, I discuss the 15 most common preparation review, 20 most common communication, 25 most common spreadsheet mistakes, and then the 5 most common lack of awareness mistakes. So specifically on the spreadsheet section, there are tips to ensure that whatever data is in the spreadsheet is accurate. It's calculating correctly, it interrelates correctly. And so I was talking about the validation formulas. There's 4 types of validations I like to put outside the print range, a little bit outside the work product, but to ensure the numbers are correct. And so one, I like to recalculate and with different combinations to make sure that the calculations are correct. If I could tie anything out to a source, I'll put a tie-out validation. There's something called a relationship validation where if the same number appears more than once, so cash flows from operations appears on page 2 and page 6, there's a validation to make sure that those tie every time, and then there's something called a roll forward validation to make sure that the prior month year-to-date numbers plus the current month month-to-date numbers equal the current month year-to-date numbers. So that's one example, but the spreadsheet section specifically would be helpful to a small business owner because the worst thing they could do is, think that they're making a lot more money or a lot less money than they really are and misinterpreting those results because decisions are made based on results. Extremely easy to get all the right data in a spreadsheet but have it communicate the wrong information.
It's interesting. It seems like, in a way, we trust technology, so we become stupid.
Yeah, that's
kind
true.
of. But it's interesting, like even with my real estate company, we have a spreadsheet that we do. We send out to calculate each agent's commission. And this happened a few years ago, but there was first of all, we didn't have it so that the fields were locked on the spreadsheet. So you could, by accident, just change a whole formula that changes everything.
Yeah.
And it was a minor change, but it affected the numbers for 4 months that we were shortchanging ourselves as a company because we didn't realize there was a mistake on a spreadsheet, which is crazy.
Ooh, that's tough.
So what's been the reaction to your book so far amongst the industry?
Yeah, the reaction's been great. The readers love it. So the feedback really falls into a couple different categories. With experienced accountants, they feel like they have something where they could give tutelage to subordinates right away. They don't have to wait for mistakes to occur. They actually have a roadmap because even if you have 20 to 30 years of experience, you just can't share your accounting playlist like you can, a musical playlist on Napster or something. So for experience, they love the fact that they could prevent errors and provide great tutelage on the front end. And then for less experienced accountants, they have told me, or the testimonials and emails is, they feel like this book has prepared them for all these different situations they were in that they would not have been prepared for. They understand what they're dealing with. They're able to attain accuracy and operate at a high level. And so a couple have told me it replaces the feedback they wish they received from their bosses, but all their bosses are telling them to do is, double check their work, pay attention to detail, stuff like that. I guess thirdly, one of my biggest, in addition to accountants, the next biggest group that's buying my book is recruiters that place accountants. And so several have pilot tested it. They liked it. They get good feedback. And so they, when Robert Half or whatever places a temp or permanent accountant on the job, they feel comfortable that these people, they give them this book and they feel comfortable that they're going to go in prepared to operate at a high level from day one.
That's amazing.
That's good.
So this is Joseph Rotman. His book is The Industry Accountant's Intelligence Briefing, Helpful Hints from the Trenches. Joseph, where can people buy your book or learn more about you?
Yeah, well, they can buy it on Amazon, and then I have a website, www.pm4secr.com. And on the website, I give away a free chapter, and there's also an extremely entertaining promo video. It's about 90 seconds, and in my opinion, one of the most entertaining promo videos for a nonfiction book ever shot.
Okay, do that website again.
Sorry, it's it's PM4, letter P, letter M, number 4, letter S, letter E, letter C, letter R.com.
Okay, PM4secr.com, and this is Joseph Rotman, the Industry Accountants Intelligence Briefing, Helpful Hints from the Trenches. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Joe. That's going to do it for this edition of Get Real with Bob and Stacy. Tune in for more again next weekend.